What is up, people of the internet? My name is Dean, and welcome to my channel. Today we are doing a little hangout that I like to call Underdogs Unite. It's on a different night. I know that threw a lot of people off, but hey, you know what? Family first. Family first over YouTube hobbies. I'm so sorry. Not sorry at all. But we went and saw Blue Beetle last night. I took my oldest. It's the only night that we'd be able to do that with mommy being able to watch the other boys because they're not ready for that kind of stuff. And we had a great time. We had a really good time, but I'm excited to be hanging out with you guys. You guys were already super active in the chat. So I'm just going to start reading some stuff, okay? So Wendy is here and says, "Good evening, dogs. I've been actively waiting for 24 hours. Good to be with you on this Saturday in all caps." So we knew that she was waiting Saturday night and talking with some people. And I'm glad to hear that things are going well. And I hope that continues. Slightly is here and says, "Got some advice that could save your life in the future. If you're ever drowning in the ocean, just drink the water. We need it to survive. So just drink to survive. Foolproof plan." I do not recommend you doing that. Only because I hear it's bad. I don't know. I've never been deserted on an island. I don't know. Maybe it's great for you, but I watched Castaway, and I'm pretty sure they were like, "Don't drink it." So I don't know. Maybe Slightly knows. I know it's not. It's not okay. He also says, "Glad you're doing much better, Wendy. I love it when you guys have interaction, hanging out. You guys don't even need me. You know, maybe one of these times I'm just going to come on to the show. I'm just going to turn on the camera and it'll just be like empty. And you guys could just like hang out and have your own good time in the chat. And, I don't know. Or you guys could all get on Twitter. And I guess, I shouldn't say that because I know you need me. That's what it is. Yeah, you need me to facilitate all of this. Because if I weren't here to facilitate it, everyone would probably be better for it. It's okay. Jamie is here and says, "Hey, everyone. I don't know who this... What is this? I don't know who this is, but hello. And patiently waiting for Hurricane Hillary. Is there a hurricane coming? I don't even know what that means. It was in this. So I'm assuming this is some kind of joke, but I don't understand it. Ah, man. I need to add some sound effects because there's a lot of times when I just have no idea what you guys are talking about. And I go, Well, that's not on you. That's probably more on me. Aaron's here and says, "What's up? What's up?" Who's the Canadian photographer guy? I don't like this. Like, I know of him and I've watched a couple of his videos. He's the pirate guy, but I don't watch enough of that kind of YouTube to know his name. But I know he does the "what's up," and every time I say "what's up," because I saw a thing where he like put in like 1,000 "what's ups." Every time I say "what's up," and like have any hand gesture, I'm immediately like, "Don't do it. Don't." Like, you don't want to look like you're following after some man. Oh, some people are, though. Some people are following after just a man. We'll take a look at it. You know what? I might add that in. I made a video today and put it up on Twitter. It's only 30 seconds, but I had a good time with it. Heidi is also here. So we got both the goings here. And says, "Wendy, oh, yes. I never know if I should show that kind of stuff. I know it's like public in a chat, but, it's like you guys are interacting. I don't want to be like, 'Hey, world, you want to see everything that's going on?'" But I guess they could if they wanted to. But she does say, "Hey, everyone, been in my PJs since 6:30 tonight. I'm ready for the chillest of streams tonight." Well, I don't know. I'm going to get people mad at me today. Sometimes, like, I kind of like the controversy. I kind of like stirring the pot a little bit. And, like, I am that guy that's like, I'll go poke the bear. Like, everyone else is like making jokes about who can outrun who. And I'm just like, I'll poke it. I'll go over there. But today I'm not sure because apparently if you have the wrong idea, and we'll see what that is. If you have the wrong idea about cussing in Christianity, you might not be a Christian, according to some people. It's kind of ridiculous. How was everyone week, says Slightly. That's so kind of him. For me, let's see. My week was all right. Didn't get a lot done. Lots of different things going on. We are still pray for us. Like, not to be super whiny, but like the reason why, like, I didn't get on the chat, and actually, we'll see how things progress. I might have to take a little bit of a break in just even a little bit. But we are still going through like this diagnosis of diabetes for one of my kids, and still trying to figure out like what works and what's the best stuff and what should he be eating at what time and what helps to be able to keep his levels all in check. It's still, every day is a mystery, and I feel like this week has been just an up and down journey of trying to figure it out. And I know everyone says like, oh, it's normal, and it's like, that's cool, that's normal. And I'm not here to like get advice. Like, you can pray for us. I would pray, like I would appreciate the prayers. But like, it's just emotionally, it's draining, at least for someone like me that likes, this is what we're doing this week. Like I like schedules. I like having like, this is exactly like the time frame that we have for it. I'm not like a super organized person. I just like to know what's coming. And like this whole thing is just like, you'll never know, sucker. It's hard. So we're trying to figure it out, but we'll see. We'll see how the next little bit goes. I'm going to flip my phone. One of the things I love is that I can just have like my son's numbers in front of me the entire time. And I've got a battery case on my phone now, so I could just have it on all the time. Just know exactly what he's at. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Let's see. Wendy says, mainly I have to watch spicy, fried, and animal-based foods, which is sounding to me like all of my favorite things. No flaming hot Cheetos? I don't know about you, Wendy, but I don't know if I can make it. Just kidding. But I'm glad that you've kind of figured out some things with that. Brian is here and says, hey, everyone. Hey, man. Noxie is here. Pumped to be catching alive. Appreciate you hanging out, man. Pam is here. Hi, guys. We got some more interactions. That's right. We no longer need you, Dean. We have broken the chains of cosmic interdependence. Okay. Well, you know what? You guys can start your own little group and leave me out of it. I get it. I'm used to that. You build something, and you either you live long enough to be, or what is that saying? I messed it up. What's the Dark Knight thing? You die the hero, or you live long enough to become the villain, or you die the hero, something like that. Whatever that is, you guys know what I'm saying. It's been a day. Let's see. Dylan's here. This is live stream on a Saturday. Big yikes.
Big yikes.
Whoa, was that as loud for you guys as it was for me? I'm going to do it again.
Big yikes.
Seems like it was. Why is that so loud? We're going to bring it down a little bit. Sam is here. Says, I'm very interested in your thoughts on this subject. I have a different opinion than most. And then she cussed. Like, just as she messed up her spelling on something. And no, just making jokes. But tax collector, we're having a hurricane here in Louisiana. Oh boy. Well, I hope everything goes well. As well as it can for something like that. Hurricanes are no jokes. Pam says, where did our dramatic chat go from yesterday? Where it disappears. Like, that's the thing. I always check it, like, when I post something and saying like, hey, we're going to have this live stream, it's there for a while and then it disappears. So like, I've even had times where people are like, where are my comments? And they leave that. And then like 5 hours later, those are gone. I have nothing to do with that. That's just YouTube. Like, it's not made to be like a post board for like the rest of the life of this stream. It's just there for a while. So I like to check in. Like, if you guys have put things in there and like didn't get a response, sorry, but like, that's why you got to post in the comments or something that it's actually going to stay. But yeah, but I checked it and I thought that was hilarious what you guys were all talking about. You guys are mad at me for not doing it on Friday. I can't help it sometimes. It's one of those things. First one in 84 years in Louisiana. What? or in LA. I don't know. Wendy says, "Come on, Dean. The pack would fall apart without our fearless leader." Who is our fearless leader? Let's all vote. I'm a Baptist, so we're gonna vote, and I nominate Dylan for fearless leader. Just he doesn't really do anything, but we just call him that. Can we just call him fearless leader from now on? And let's see. Oh, Danny's here. Maybe he could be our fearless leader. Hi all. How late am I? Not much. I haven't even gotten to anything yet. Like 10 minutes into the stream. We're just talking. I appreciate the prayers, guys. I see that. It's not fun, man. It's like, especially for someone like me, it is not fun. You know what? I'm gonna have to pause the stream. I hate to be dramatic, but I gotta pause the stream and just make sure. Like, we have levels that he's supposed to stay within. And when he dips a little bit below it, I kind of get a little nervous, even though like he has enough in his system that in the long game it should be fine. But I like to have him well within the guidelines when I'm doing a stream, so I don't have to worry about it, even though I will worry about it. That's just who I am. So I'm going to do the little break earlier. I'm sorry, but just one of those things. This is what it takes for me to be able to do these every once in a while. Oh, there's the microphone. Sorry about that. It's just, part of life, I guess. But I appreciate you guys hanging out, even still. What is this? Heidi, could Dean handle a daughter? LOL. I think so. Honestly, I think I could. I've got 3 boys, but I don't know. If I was hanging out with the patriarchs, I know that they'd be like, you need to work on your masculinity because these boys, like, they like a lot of things that aren't super masculine. But, I don't know. Let's see. Los Angeles, not Louisiana. There's a hurricane coming to Los Angeles? What? Is this some kind of like Roland Emmerich movie? Like, what is that? I guess, yeah, you said like a bunch of years. It's the first time in a long time. You're wrong slightly. You're wrong. You are wrong!
You are wrong, Leonidas. You are wrong.
Let me know. Are those sound effects a little loud? I'm realizing maybe my headphones are turned up. I did a stream this afternoon with my oldest on my movie channel, just talking about the movie that we saw yesterday. And I think messed up some things. Also, I'm moving some things around. So it's just what I do all the time. Thanks, Pam. I appreciate it. Take all the time you need, Dean. We will be wildin' though. I'm actually so tired I can't cope. We're in the middle of getting ready to move. Oh, it sounds exhausting. No, thank you. I'll be praying that you guys can just get it done. Get it in the rearview mirror as quick as possible. It's no fun at all. Colin says, Dean better agree with my opinion on cussing or I'm going to be hecking mad. Oh, no. We'll see. We'll see, Colin. I don't know. I think everyone pretty much knows, and I did talk about it last week, but I thought I would do like a little bit deeper of a dive this week because, let's just hop into that. We'll hop into that and we'll have fun as we do it too. But this week there's been a kerfuffle on Christian YouTube, as is always the case. And a lot of times I have no idea there's a kerfuffle. But then sometimes I see things from friends of friends of friends. YouTube hunts you down like, you should watch this. And you're like, why? But you click anyways. That's probably how you came across this channel, actually. But you click anyways, and you're like, what is going on? And so I've seen a couple different people react to Tim Ross, who is the guy behind The Basement, the guy who came up with the international hit song, That Bread in My Pocket, and also I guess he called Jesus a stripper and started talking about making it rain. And sometimes it's just like, how did you even get to that point where you thought this was going to be like a good thing to say? Like, sometimes illustrations go off the rails. But then some of these guys who have like the big stages, like, that they spend so much time crafting like every aspect of what they're doing on stage. Like, and that's not to say that they can't wing it at certain points, but sometimes you just know, like, that they thought this one through, or this is like their 3rd time saying this exact illustration. I guarantee you it was not the first time that Tim Ross ever thought about calling Jesus a stripper. I'm sure he's done it several times, and he decided to do it on a stage, and that was nuts. But then, like, it got a little quiet for him. He's still doing the basement thing, his podcast, and he left his church. He was a pastor, I guess, and now he's just a podcaster doing the basement thing, and his basement looks a little bit better than my basement. I gotta admit that. Like, as far as, like, I feel like people who spend a lot of time in their basements, I could have, like, one of those HGTV shows about basements and just really just reviewing basements. And as far as basements go, his basement is pretty good. The quality is very good, although I will say sometimes I see windows in that basement. It's like, I don't know, those don't look like Eagers windows. Like, those, Like, I think you see the mountains from those windows. Like, maybe not a basement. But anyways, so he's doing that. And I guess he's cussing up a storm. And so the Christian influencer world started talking about it. And I've seen takes that are kind of nuts. And it's not like this guy needs any defense. But I thought I would talk about it because when people are describing what he's doing, they're like, I've seen stuff like that people have crafted to be like, this is what I want out in the world, not just like somebody accidentally said it and then it got, said a couple more times through a stream. We're going to clip this out. We're going to send it out of Tim Ross isn't a Christian anymore because he did this. He said this.
The Christian country was nothing more than Christian ideology that we got to nitpick at. Right. I choose this part of it, but not.
I will say, once again, I never want to get in trouble with you parents. Like, so we're talking about cussing. So discretion.
Yeah.
Where's the verse that says I can have a slave?
Right.
That one.
Right. And where's the verse that says you're supposed to treat your slave like your brother? Right under the verse that you just read, that slaves are supposed to obey their masters. So this is how lazy we are now.
Right.
Like that's bull. Like
Right.
It's infuriating. So he says that, and all of the Christians, or at least it seems like it, a lot of people want to talk about how gross and wrong it is for him to represent himself in that way as a Christian and as a pastor, which he's not a pastor. I don't know him, so I'm not going to make any talk about like him and his qualifications. I will just say, based off of what I've seen online of him calling Jesus a stripper, I don't know. Like, that gets me like really nervous for for any church that would have been pastored by a guy who's willing to talk about Jesus in those kind of terms. So that being said, like, let's talk about it. Like, because I think that a lot of us have come from more conservative worlds than where we are at right now. Like, that's what my whole channel has basically been about. A lot of people who are here have deconstructed or are, I don't know, reevaluating their faith, whatever phrase you want to use. You've gone through a process of looking at your background, your local church that you grew up in, or your family situation, and have kind of reevaluated what you believe based off of the Bible in comparison to just like what you were taught or what you're told that you believe, and have kind of adjusted. And, some of us have adjusted, just a little bit, and maybe we're still in the same circles. Some of us have gone a little bit further, but that's kind of what, all of us have done, including myself. Again, I came from independent fundamental Baptist kind of roots, even though I was kind of on the outskirts. That's my roots. I can't hide that. Like, I can't hide it. I don't want to hide it, but I can't also help that. Like, that's where I come from. So I actually come from the background that cussing is a sin. Like, always a sin, no matter what, because we got Bible verses. We got Bible verses that tell us that we should not cuss as Christians. And, a lot of these people that have been talking about this clip, they've been using those Bible verses. And they've been saying, based off of that, someone who knowingly, like they know about the scripture passages about it being a sin in their eyes, then someone who knows that, they can't continue in that sin, right? They can't continue in that because they have the knowledge of it. And if they have the knowledge of it, but they're not convicted about that, then they don't have the Holy Spirit. This is where I get a little upset. Like, I really don't care what your opinion on cussing is, because most likely I'm going to get in trouble with some people, but most likely you'll never hear me cuss. Most likely, because we don't hang out like that. And the things that I do on my channel are public things. And even though I don't view this as a ministry, I know that if I were to cuss on this channel, I would have the same people coming for me that are coming for this guy right here. All right. Like I would have the exact same folks making videos about I don't know if they do videos, maybe just a tweet if this guy's dumb. Uh, probably, I don't think I would make it as far as like getting this out into the YouTube world, but I don't bring in a lot of viewers. Okay. And those that do would be like, why are you talking about them that way? Cause you guys would be like, what, that's what you're going to nail for. But I would have people upset at me. And so I want to kind of go through why I don't view. I'll show you my cards real early because I'm not wearing a long sleeve shirt nor a jacket, so I can't hide the cards up on my sleeve. Get it? I want to go through some of the scripture passages that these people use to say that Christians should not cuss. And I'm not here to convince you. All right. I'm not here to convince you of what you should think about cursing. I'm just coming at it from I think this is more of a wisdom issue than it is a spiritual growth issue. Okay. And there's a big difference between those two. So let's look at some of the scripture passages that people will use in this conversation. I want to look at 4 of them. All right. So let's start over here. So this is Ephesians chapter 4. You've probably gotten this verse. I know that some of you guys will probably be like, well, if you do or you don't, like you need to wrestle with this verse, right? Like Ephesians chapter 4. This is the verse that comes to mind for everybody. So in this description of Paul relating how we do things as a church and like how we treat brothers and sisters in Christ, this is what he says. Let's start actually in verse 25 for context. Therefore, putting away lying, speak the truth, each one to his neighbor, because we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Don't let the sin go down on your anger, and don't give the devil an opportunity. Let the thief no longer steal. Instead, he is to do honest work with his own hands, so that he has something to share with anyone in need. No foul language. And this is the one that they would put in all caps and say, you got this is it. Like there is no debate. Here it is. No foul language should come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need, so that it gives grace to those who hear. And then goes on, don't grieve the Holy Spirit and some more stuff. And then gets into all the fun stuff about men and women and how we relate to one another. Super fun passages, right? That we all love and don't have any difficulty or disagreements about whatsoever. All right. So no foul language. Now, this is the CSB. Maybe your Bible has another word for foul here. This is one of the few times that I would probably take a different translation than the CSB. I was actually kind of like, I've been using the CSB for, I don't know, like coming up here on like 5 years or so. But I'm used to the ESV. And so usually it's like corrupting. Corrupting is the word that is used for no foul language. And we're going to talk a little bit basically about word studies today. What this word is mostly used for is this idea of something degrading someone or something. And in the context here, no foul language should come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need. So, like when we're talking about like what you shouldn't do, what you should do, we always need to remember that, if there's an object, like a direct object of what we're doing that to or for, that we take that into consideration to understand what a phrase means. So if it is like what's clear here, but only what is good for building up someone in need, like let's make sure that we take that back to the earlier part, because it's a contrast, right? Like it's a contrast of don't do this instead. So we need to take that someone in need and bring them back to this foul language that shouldn't be coming from your mouth. And again, understanding that we're showing a contrast here. So building up, the opposite of that is downgrading somebody, like or corrupting them, bringing them lower in some way. And again, it's someone in need. So what this verse is talking about is not whether you say a certain word for poop. Okay, we're going to get real childish with some of the ways that we say things today. But that's not what this verse is talking about. This verse is talking about using your language in a way that is either going to build someone up, someone who needs something, build them up, or you can tear them down. That's really what's happening here. Now, I would argue that tearing down doesn't, like, you might be like, well, certainly using a cuss word against a person would do that. Yeah, but so would so many other words. So are we just getting rid of all those words altogether? No, like, verses mean certain things. So if it's for the, like, you should build someone up, then the opposite here of what he's saying is, like, you shouldn't tear them down isn't just about specific words. It's about the attitudes that are going into how you're articulating yourself to another person who's in need. So that person who is in need, you shouldn't, like, be like, well, you got yourself into this situation, right? Like, pastors do that sometimes when they're like, when I was pastoring, especially in Minnesota, like, we got calls all the time because we ministered in the only county in Minnesota without a shelter. And it's Minnesota, so it's frickin' cold in the winter, right? So, like, we would get calls all the time about, I could really use, like, a hotel stay. We need groceries. I remember spending months ministering to people who were living in a laundromat and, like, trying to help them and get them back on their feet. Well, sometimes those people are there because of their own actions. Like, everybody needs help every once in a while. So, like, stuff is going to happen. But sometimes it's because, they keep on getting themselves into that situation. Well, there's a way to articulate that to a person, and there's a way not to. And someone who is in need, you shouldn't be just being like, well, you dug yourself into this hole. I would argue that that is what Paul is talking about when he's talking about no foul language or corrupting language should come out from your mouth, but only what is good for building up someone in need. So that gives grace to those who hear. You want to help them. You want to help them. And specifically in the context of the church, sometimes you're going to have a brother or sister that's in need. Coming around and being like, well, you really should have thought about this before. If only you had signed up for that, next level of health insurance, like, then, you wouldn't be dealing with this situation. We wouldn't have to help you this way. Churches do that too. Like, that's not how you help people. You want to give grace to those people. You want to extend the same kind of kindness and compassion that you would want, right? And as certainly people who belong to Jesus, we should be showing that for one another. If we have that familial bond, if we really are that family that we talk about all the time on Sundays to try to get visitors to stay with us for a couple more weeks, I think that we can describe our situations. And even if it is tough love, like, maybe people need that. Maybe it's time for that. But there's a right way and a wrong way to be describing that. So for someone who takes this verse and they say, well, that means, no foul language right there. Like, they go to the CSB and they use this specific translation just for that reason, because it sounds like so similar to what we would call cussing today, foul language. Like, they're like, hey, that's what it is. Well, I don't mean to be like the nerd that's like, I ain't the Greek, but that's what that word means, is corrupting. And you're going to see that as something throughout here. So another verse that would come to mind for people, and this isn't just me explaining away verses, it's just these are the verses that people nitpick and or cherry pick, and they say, like, all right, we're going to take this one from over there, this one from over here, and we're lobbing these 4 verses on you and saying, this is why, people like Tim Ross aren't a Christian. Like, again, I'm not defending the guy. He said some really crazy stuff, so I don't know about him. But I'm saying, like, if you lob these onto a person like a Christian who professes to be a believer, and they might, drop, I don't know, they might say BS, and they don't say BS. And like, you just lob it on top of them. Like, every verse has its context. So don't just take a verse and be like, ha 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 ha, ha, and, like, use it like a Tommy gun at people. Like, let's deal with the verses then. All right, so James 3, so this is about not many of you should become teachers, which is always the thing that people take out, and they just start talking about the tongue. But let's remember, it's about teaching. But then verse 10, blessing and cursing come out of the same mouth. My brothers and sisters, these things should not be this way. Does a spring pour out sweet and bitter water from the same opening? Can a fig tree produce olives? Olives, the olive. Talk about it. My brothers and sisters, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a saltwater spring yield fresh water. But if we understand the context, we're talking about the context of teaching. If you are teaching and you are going up there and you're using language that is condemning people in a way that you're just like going at them as a person, you're not dealing with ideas, that's where I think this is coming through. When you're just cursing people from the stage, how many pastors do you know who have done that? Like, this isn't just like people interacting. Like this is from the beginning. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that we will receive a stricter judgment. So I do think there is something to the fact of a teacher, a leader in an instance, not using language that would be considered cursing. Now, there is a difference between cussing and cursing that I think needs to be said. Cursing in biblical terms is when you say, like, I don't know, like, I'm just going to say the word. So, again, I always think about kids. I never want little kids to be around when we're talking about these things. But just saying, damn you. Like, when you're taking that condemnation and being like really focused and saying, damn you, like, someone's going to clip that out now. But when you're doing that, like, there are teachers who do that, and that ought not to be. Like, we should say things in a way that is constructive for people and helpful. And in the context here, it's talking about, pastors and teachers within the context of the local church. So again, context helps with these things. It doesn't mean like that, oh, well, I'm not a pastor, so I could go around and say whatever I want. There are other verses that talk about how we treat people that would certainly figure into how we use our language. But to just say like, well, this verse says no cursing and no, it should just be blessing. And if you're going to curse, you can't have both of those things coming out of the same mouth. Yes, in the context of teaching. Let's go one more, and then we'll hop into what you guys have to say, and then we'll look at what I think is like the biggest passage. So 1 Peter chapter 3, starting at verse 8, finally, all of you be like-minded and sympathetic, love one another, and be compassionate and humble, not paying back evil for evil or insult for insult, but on the contrary, giving a blessing, since you were called for this, so that you may inherit a blessing. For the one who wants to love life and to see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. So I've heard this often used as one of those verses to just throw at people and say, no cussing because of this. But let's remember, once again, context here. This is about people within the local church, that they should love one another and they shouldn't be lying about each other. All right. And when we're talking about how we interact, not paying evil for evil. So if someone cusses you out, to cuss them back is then like, okay, like, I think you're fitting into where this verse is really going at. If you're just, taking everything and instead of maybe, turning the other cheek, you're just ready to lash out at someone within the church when they come at you and lashing it out at you. This is what we're talking about. And there is a way to defend yourself within the church that isn't that way. But if you're just like cussing at someone at church, like, it's kind of shocking to put it in those terms. But this is a first century Christianity. Okay, this was happening. Like, people were getting in each other's business. Just read 1 Corinthians. But like, the keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. It's not about cussing. It's actually about lies. Speaking lies about a person and making up things about another brother or sister in Christ. Like, if you're doing that, you're sinning. You're sinning against them. And you are being divisive within the church, which is a very big deal. But let's see what you guys are saying. I'm sure that there's a lot of disagreement, and that's fine. Let's go. There's oh no, Dylan's disqualified. Oh, rats. He can't be our fearless leader. Dylan says the reason why he's disqualified, according to Heidi, I only cuss around my Christian friends and then they look really shocked. Then I say I was only joking. That fixes everything. Saying I was only joking. Yeah. You can do all these things and then just say I was, no, of course not. Is there alpha beta male talk going on? To me, that's more important. Let's see. Colin says, "You spin me right around, Jesus right around, like record, Jesus right around, right around." Okay. I don't know what's going on. You do you, boo. I appreciate it. Where's like the... All right, Pam, anyone reading this chat and wondering if we are all okay? We're not. So hop in the chat and join this madness. I don't know if this is helping, if that's a good selling point, Pam. All right, let's get into it. Sam says, cursing is tearing someone down with words. Any word can be a curse when used that way, in my opinion. Yes, but it's not just tearing someone down, or at least maybe what you mean by that, tearing someone down, is like harsh condemnation. Like, if you... I actually think, all right, if you were to look at a Christian who cusses and to say that they're on their way to hell for cussing, they're not fitting into these categories that we're talking about, I think that's cursing. I would say that is actual cursing. Like you're condemning that, you're harshly condemning that person based off of your own Christian freedom and where you've come out with verses that are not specific enough. Because again, we're dealing with a text that's 2,000 years old. So yes, words have changed. We'll talk about, some words that are used might not be the nicest words. So for those people, they need to be a little bit careful. Let's see. Colin says, I agree. If you cuss at a person with sinful intent, then you are sinning. The coffee table doesn't have feelings when you cuss it out for hurting your toe. Yeah, I would still say that a Christian should be careful about their word choice when they're, when you stub your toe, to use your example. It's not to say, like for me, I'll say it, like I think that there are appropriate times to cuss. I think about this a lot of times when I was in Fundy World. I would talk about movies and what movies we should go to. And even as a pastor, I remember giving this illustration of why I think that it's appropriate or okay for war movies to have more language in it than, a typical movie. Because like if I'm getting shot at, I'm probably not going to be like, oh, rats, or, oh man, like that's probably not what I'm going to say in that circumstance. But at the same time, what's the difference? Like a heightened amount of intensity? Like nothing has changed morally about that situation. So for those people who would put themselves and say like, oh, well, if it's because of the intensity of the situation. Well, that's just like, well, then how intense does it have to be, right? If we're going to be super relative about all those things, then we have to like be okay with people who are going to take a slightly different stance on that because it's not objective. It's all, personal and just what you think is appropriate. And that's what we call the gray stuff, right? Like that's something that we go, okay, well, we don't actually have something that specifically says in that situation. Now, we just talked about a couple of situations I think are clear that you should be careful about your word choice. If there's a pastor who is up on stage preaching for his congregation and cussing up a storm, I think that there's an issue. And while I don't view what I'm doing here as me preaching or like I even have said already in the chat or already in the stream, I don't view this as ministry. But at the same time, if I was here and I was just cussing up a whole bunch, I don't think that would be helpful for a lot of people out there. So like, I think that there's wisdom that we need to have, discernment about when to use it. Even, and the reason why I say like maybe even with the coffee table, you might not want to, if you're one of those people who is prone to just repeat the same words. I kind of do that. Like, so if I was just always like every time I stub my toe, I would cuss. Like I probably shouldn't be doing that because I'm going to come up on a stream or I'm going to be teaching or I'm going to do something and I'm going to say it. And there's going to be people out there that are going to be offended. It's not going to be because of the gospel. It's going to be because of something that I said. And sometimes, you can't live your life based on those things. but there are things that you can avoid, and that's about wisdom. So again, that's a personal thing. So I'm gonna that's just me. So I'm not going to say that has to be your view or someone else's view, but I'm articulating mine. So I would even have I would say, Christian, you should be a little bit careful about when you use these words. If you're the kind of person that just has words that just like you drop into conversations without thinking about it. If you're one of those people that can just like think through your sentence so clearly and be able to articulate themselves very well, I think that you're probably going to be a little bit more okay than someone like me who uses like, I don't know, I just did it like 30 times, 30 times in about 3 minutes. I remember my first sermon as a pastor, or at least in ministry, like full time. I had a congregant come up to me. I didn't know him. And he'd come up to me. Do you want to know how many times you said really? Now you guys are going to start counting how many times I say certain words. But like, if you're someone like me, I think you need to be a little bit more careful about how, if you are going to cuss, how often you do it and what's the context, because it can slip in and it could be a needless offense. Now you might be like, well, those people should grow up. Okay. But the Bible tells us that we're supposed to forbear with people that are a little bit different than us. And that goes both ways. But oftentimes, the weaker brother is going to look at the stronger brother and just call him a liberal. So, like that's just the way it goes, I guess. So, Sam says, I swear by the moon and the stars in the sky, I'll be there. I'll be there. Oh man, I'm gonna have this stuck in my head all day. Good thing the day is almost over. Let's see. Yeah, I sang that. Yeah, right. We all did. Linguist ammo. I think it was distasteful using that word on a podcast where you should be professional. Definitely agree on your interpretation of Ephesians 4 verse 21 though. Okay, cool. Yeah. I don't know that context. I don't know what that podcast is about. I think it would be also different for someone who is like me, who does like reaction kind of content. I think that it might be a little bit different for me to cuss versus someone who does a lot of just straight up Bible teaching, like Mike Winger. If Mike Winger were to cuss, I think that would probably, his audience would just eat him alive, first off. But also, I think that would be a little bit different than someone who has a channel that, like probably I would wager, not that I'm a gambling man, although we could get into that too. But I think it would probably be around like 50% of my audience would be like, I don't really like cussing, but I do it sometimes. And then the other side would be like, no cussing, or at least I don't think it's appropriate or something like that. I think we'd be very divided on that. So it wouldn't be like a 97% say you shouldn't do this, but we're a bunch of liberals. So what do we know? Aaron says, my IFB head almost exploded when my farmer grandmother gave a small lecture on the species specific correct terms for manure. Oh yeah. I could see that. I remember, I would, when I was working and in Bible college, I worked at Taco Bell, and it was in Owatonna, Minnesota. And I would walk down Bridge Street and, go to work and go from these classes that we were talking about, dispensationalism. And then I'd go into Taco Bell, and then everyone would be just cussing up a storm. And I'd be like, oh, these sinners. And I didn't care what they were actually doing with their lives, but just the words that they were using. Just being like, thank you, God, that I'm not like that guy over there on the deep fryer. But Isabel says, I think it's a similar misunderstanding to the commandment, thou shalt not lie, versus do not bear false witness. Maybe. Sarah says, I love that you were talking about this. My husband and I were just talking about this. Recently, we have been around some Christians that were cursing, and we're revisiting this issue. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that it's something you should do all the time. Like words to me matter. And I know sometimes when I'm doing streams, it might not seem like that because again, I grew up with a speech impediment, and I'm not the brightest guy ever, so there are lots of times I get lost in my sentences and I just throw in those filler words. So I'm not a great public speaker, but it is what it is, and so I go with it. But I think that there are a lot of people who use words, filler words, and sometimes they just cuss a lot, and all of a sudden it becomes really distasteful, even for someone who might not cuss might cuss, but they don't cuss that much. I think that there is an appropriateness to these harsh words, because if you're always using harsh words to describe like little things, I think that you're losing the meaning of the word. But also, people around you are going to be like, "What the heck?" What's wrong with that? I'm not going to give specific situations because some people might watch my stuff. I hang out with people, like some Christians who do cuss. And if you're cussing a ton over like a board game, for an example, you might struggle with your language a little bit, and maybe you need to calm down a little bit, because words do mean something. And if you're just always going to throw these words in, I do view that they're a little bit different than some of the other ways we say things, euphemisms of frick and darn it and heck and all those words that the goings don't want their kids to hear, and I really hope they're not around. But it's a late stream. They should be in bed. I'm not telling you how to parent goings. I'm just saying I don't want anyone to be offended. Keep being the nerd, Dean. Well, I'll always be the nerd in pretty much any room that I walk into. I'm a nerd about sports. I'm a nerd about everything that I like. Dylan says, I really don't have a problem with cussing. However, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. If this would cause another believer to stumble, then I would be cautious with speech. Yes, and there are certainly, people that you get around that you don't want to do it. One, it's going to be a headache. All right? We know it. You and I both know it. That conversation is not going to be productive. That conversation is going to be awful, and feelings are going to get hurt. So why go through that? But also, if you're going to offend someone, I think a lot of us are just like, no, I don't want to offend them. Sometimes people need to be stretched a little bit, but you don't want to just needlessly offend someone if it's really going to hurt their feelings, personally offend them that you're doing this thing. But again, I will say that there's a difference for, all right, lots of different issues we're dealing with this thing. But one of them is this thing, people say, oh, you offended me. There is a difference between hurting someone's feelings and biblically offending somebody. Biblically offending someone is kind of gaslighting them into thinking that this is the right thing to do, of violating their conscience in some way, either by listening to you do that thing or by forcing them to actually do it. Now, I would say that a lot of times when people are talking about them being offended, they're actually just saying you hurt my feelings. And you don't want to do that. But it's not the same thing. Biblically, we have a mandate not to force people into a conscience issue, which is a problem all over the place in Christianity right now. We have made these really hard lines on dumb stuff to where all of a sudden we are taking people's conscience and saying, don't listen to that thing, listen to me. And we're doing that all across the board on a lot of different issues. But most of the time when people are talking about, oh, that's offensive, they're really saying that it just hurts my feelings that you're doing that. Or I'd prefer that you didn't do that thing. Biblically, we have a mandate to make sure that we're not violating someone's conscience. That's offensive. That's what it means to biblically offend someone. But I think we do have a responsibility as a Christian, as a brother and sister in Christ, to be able to forbear with our brothers and sisters who differ with us on certain issues and they just don't like things, to try as best we can to make sure that we're getting along. And so sometimes, you're going to have to force someone to have that conversation, let them know, this is a thing. This is the Justin Peters thing of drinking alcohol. Saying that you drink alcohol isn't causing someone to stumble. Right? Now, taking that person to the bar and drinking in front of them, or hanging out with them at a barbecue and offering that person alcohol might. So we need to know, we need to have those conversations with people so we know where they're at when we're inviting them into our lives. But just to say like, oh, well, yeah, we drink. Like that's not what it means to force someone to stumble. And I think a lot of Christians, I'm not saying anyone here in our chat and in our discussion is saying that, but just a lot of Christians, they just don't understand that. And they make everything of, why are you offending me? That's not what it means. Like, I don't want you to be unhappy, and I want to be able to have peace between you and I. But that's not what offensive means. Heidi says, I haven't really thought really hard about this cussing issue. Dean is making me think about this differently tonight. Uh-oh, that's not good. You know, again, I'm just stating my opinion. I'm not saying you have to have my opinion. Long live the olive. Isabella says, teaching my children that they should never bear false witness because that's never loving, but sometimes it's necessary to lie to love your neighbor. I don't know. I don't know the context of that, but I don't think it's ever necessary to lie. But that's my opinion. I'm just a guy in my basement. Dylan says, not that I make a habit of cussing, but it still is a habit that comes in certain situations. I understand. And again, if it's just something like that happens and you cuss in front of someone that doesn't cuss, like, again, as long as they're okay and like they're not going to be like, we need to have a 4-hour discussion about this thing, then whatever. But and we'll deal with another verse here in a minute. So Sam says, you mean pastors shouldn't be shaming people from the pulpit? Yeah.
What's wrong with you people?
Isabella says, cursing is using crass language against someone. Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think it's focused on harsh condemnation, and a lot of times that means go to hell. Like, let's be clear. Like, a lot of times that's where it's going. It's like, you should go to hell, and whatever language they use to describe that. But harsh condemnation, that's what cursing means. Or another word to say that is blasphemy. I know most people think of blasphemy and they just think about God, but in the context of the Old Testament, it was basically, you taking someone's name and throwing it in the dirt. And that's what I think cursing is. Sarah says, I love that you keep in mind young ears, Dean. My kids listen in sometimes. My kids listen to everything that I say and watch. So that's why my mind is always there. I would not want my kids to be listening in on this conversation. So that might tell you about like what I think about cussing around kids. But Sam says, cough, cough, Paul Washer. I didn't say it. Pamela says, seems we need some lozenges in the chat. All right. Wendy says, my thought is similar. The F word is particularly problematic because words have meaning. People like me with horrendous childhood essay, that term is simply nefarious. Yeah. And I will also say there is, like, words are attached, like you said, words have meaning, but they're also attached to different things. They're attached to attitudes. They're like, every word has a background, and maybe that person who's using it doesn't know about that background. So maybe that, when you hear someone say it, you should have a conversation with them before you're like, get up in arms about it. But at the same time, they should know. Like, they should know, if you're going to use a word, you should know what it means. And so, like, there are some words that are just sexual in nature and maybe shouldn't be said. That's where I'll leave it with that one. I'm not willing to go stronger on it. Kira says, what's up with the coughing? I just arrived. I don't know. Oh, like the coughing. Oh, okay. Cause you're saying names and then cough. I get it. Sam, I think Slightly and you have the same cold. You guys beat me to this keyboard. Will never be the same. Yeah. Kira says, do celebrity pastors curse a lot, the Reformed ones? Not that I know of. I would probably say that most of the Reformed ones are in the camp that you shouldn't. Like, this was the main issue for John MacArthur and Mark Driscoll. The reason why John MacArthur condemned Mark Driscoll as a teacher wasn't because of his problematic teaching on women, because that's the same problematic teaching that's going on in his church. A little bit of like, I remember there being some stuff about like the gifts and that, but that's also MacArthur, you know, he's selling some products and stuff, some books that he was in the middle of. But mostly it was just language. So, while you might be right sometimes with that, maybe sometimes like, cause he would say stuff like, oh, it means that there are bigger things that are going on in his life. That's not always true. Sometimes words are just words and backgrounds are just backgrounds that you have, and you have to overcome some things, especially when you're teaching from the pulpit on a regular basis. Some things from your past, they're just going to happen in, you got to deal with it. But like, that's why he called out Mark Driscoll, was for the cussing. Now someone to say John MacArthur isn't reformed, but all the other guys, I don't think anyone is like this. You need to, I don't like, there's always a label. Like right now, it seems like Tim Ross has taken the crown from Mark Driscoll as the cussing pastor. So like they always say that. I don't know why. They think it's clever every time. I've seen like 4 different guys be the cussing pastor. So, and I haven't been around that long, as some of you guys like to tell me. Wendy says, why would we ever use such a word? There is the issue of our being called to holiness. Language has been prostituted and often meaningless. Yeah, that's something that we need to consider when we're using a word. I will say different contexts are different contexts. Who was it? Someone was talking about the song Richmond, North of Richmond. Like, I didn't even know what that was. You guys were talking about that last week, and I was totally lost. I didn't know what it was. And then I think it was like Monday I watched that guy sing that song. Catchy song, I'll admit. I think it's filled with garbage, but that's just my political stuff. But like, it's a catchy tune, I'll admit that. And he has a good voice. But like, I think it was Phil Johnson immediately was like this guy, he's cussing and Christians are fine with it. And like Christianity Today had an article about it and they're like, getting up in arms about it. I think it's a different context. I think probably the words that people would use in that dude's life are probably a lot different than Phil Johnson in his daily life, and people that he interacts with. So there is something to context. Context isn't everything. You can't like change black and white things in scripture, and because your context is different, you can like twist it to be like, well, it's not true in my context. That's not how it works. But these things that we're just coming up with things and saying like, this is where we're at, based off of not like interpretation, but just like our conviction based off of some principles that we've learned from scripture. And so that's a little bit more subjective. Like, I don't think that we could just change everything for the sake of our context, but some of those subjective things might be because of our context. And I think that's one of them. But it's all right. I'm usually lost, guys. I just like that you guys hang out, like, and you guys are active in the chat. And I've been told by some of my buddies, they wish their chat was like this, or when they did a stream, of how active you guys are here. So I'm very thankful to be lost and to try to be figuring out what your guys' inside jokes are and stuff. Dean should be used to us going off there. I'm getting used to it. It's still shocking. I will say, it's very different. Like, cause on my movie channel, it's so small and they're not like people who watch, maybe some of you guys watch my movie stuff. But the people who are subscribed to my movie channel right now, like, it's just a very small channel, and hopefully it will grow, and hopefully I'll get better at doing stuff, because I really do love movies. It's just a really fun creative outlet, especially when you're dealing with heavy things here on this channel. It's kind of nice to be able to have like a way to be creative and to have a little bit more of lighter fun. Like, I always enjoy hanging out with you guys and talking through our stuff, but I'm talking about like the opposition. I hate even saying that, but like the people who are just like against what I'm doing here, sometimes they're louder some weeks than others. And so sometimes it's just not as fun to be talking about these things. And so it's nice to have like a way to use my creativity and some of my tech stuff too. And I really enjoy just like talking to people. So it's nice to be able to do that with the movie thing. But I will say there's a big difference. Like I did a stream today and I think it got up to 3 viewers and I was like, oh snap. Like, oh, here we go. We're at 3 viewers and like nobody, like I think there were like 2 chat messages other than Michael S came in and was really nice and threw in a couple of different things. But yeah, so it's very different. I'm very thankful for you guys and that you guys like to hang out with me and are very active in the chat. It's cool. Let's keep on going with what you guys are saying. Kira says, I've always heard that phrase that any word could potentially be a swear word. I don't know if that's true. I grew up in a very sweary household. Yeah, I don't think that's true. Like, cause again, words mean things because like a lot of these words that we use for cussing today, like their meaning is harsh, right? Like that's what like these cuss words are meant for. To express extreme emotions. Like when other words fail, these words, sometimes 4-letter words, are the words that we use or people use to be able to articulate extreme emotions, right? So I don't know if that's like you could just throw in any word because they all mean certain things. Let's see. Star 123 is here. Hey, haha. When my kids were little, I told them to use rats as their frustration word. I wouldn't let them say shut up or crap. Yeah, we started with man. I say man all the time. I still do. But like they couldn't use, like our kids can't say like heck and dang and, some of those kind of words. I think I just gave my oldest the ability to say crap. So I don't know, say I'm a terrible father and I'll ban you from the chat. But I know some people will probably be like, whatever. Sarah says, in the state of Michigan, it is illegal to cuss in front of women and children. I'm pretty sure it's not followed, but I think that of that as a Christian, since I know the law exists. Wow, that's pretty stringent. Aaron says, I've enjoyed learning about swearing in other languages. Any word or phrase can be considered offensive. Yeah. I don't know about other places. I only know how to cuss in English. I'm not very good at it. Dylan says, I've heard some Christians say thank you, Jesus, when they drop a wrench on their face or slam their fingers in the door. Maybe they were about to use his name inappropriately. Tip of the hat to them. Actually, I would say that's way worse. Like, all right, so let's be clear. All right, taking the Lord's name in vain is always wrong and sinful. Like we see that in the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not take the Lord thy God's name in vain. And people use, like they say, oh God, in situations like that is never okay for any Christian. This is not a conscience issue. That is explicitly said in Scripture. You should not take the Lord's name in vain. And I think even using Jesus' name to be like, oh, thank you. Like, what are you trying to express there? Is it actual thankfulness to Jesus? I don't know. As a pessimist, I kind of doubt it, right? Like you just hurt real bad. And so you're saying that. So like what you're still doing, like it's not about the words that you use necessarily. It's about the intent of your heart there. You're expressing extreme pain and you're using Jesus' name to do that. Like I would have a lot of issues with people who would do that. And like, again, I've seen so many pastors, Reformed pastors even, okay, who go up on stage and they just say God's name in vain over and over again throughout their sermon. Like actually, I think Tim Ross does that too. And that's the bigger problem that I would have with him than, him dropping the F word or the B word on a podcast, is taking God's name in vain, especially from stage. Like it's always wrong whenever. But to do that in front of others, and there are so many pastors who do it every Sunday, and they think of it as like, oh, this will be my like build up to express something, or like sometimes they'll use other words like hallelujah or something like that, and but what they're doing is they're expressing like this extreme displeasure with something, and like that's not okay. Like, but they would never say, the F word from behind the pulpit, but they'll take God's name in vain so quickly and so often throughout their sermons. To me, that is so hypocritical. Heidi says, Aaron warned me not listening at my parents' house. He thought my parents might be offended at Dean's language. That is the view I was raised with, not mine now. I didn't notice Dean's language before that. Because of crap and stuff. Yeah, some people are offended by that. But again, I would say that that's the offense of I just don't like that. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to me. Heidi's parents probably don't want to listen to me. So that's fine. But yeah, if that's going to get in the way of your teaching, I also use these things, guys. Again, there are certain things that I do on my channel to weed out people that I don't want to watch because I tried to do that whole, talk about these things in a way that brings everybody in. And what I got from that was that people were confused about where I stood, thought that I was agreeing with them sometimes when I wasn't, and I wasn't really being my authentic self. And so there are things that I've changed about my channel in the last year and a half that have helped with building, a community here on the channel, here in the chat, but also have helped to be this is who I am. I am the same person when I turn on this camera that I am when I go upstairs and, when my wife gets home, we're going to probably watch a movie. I'm the same person. I use pretty much the same language. But before, when I was doing stuff, I would make sure that I wouldn't say crap or dang it, or stuff like that. But now I do it because I don't want the people who would be so offended to not watch my channel to if that's going to be the thing, there's going to be so much else about the actual content of what I say that they're just going to be completely against. So it's a way of filtering out people. And also things just of having that on the set. I've talked about that a bunch, or skulls around. And I'm just, there are certain things that I just don't want here on this channel. I am not about bringing everyone. Nope, tried that and it was awful for everyone involved. But, yeah. I agree. I think that would be. Let's see. Jamie, sounds like Dean sang it in color. Me bad, but I sang it in John Michael Montgomery. Yeah, probably. Heidi says, we were at my parents' house in West Virginia. Oh, no. Oh, I see the joke in it after. I don't read that fast. It immediately had a reaction, Heidi. In June this year, that is when Aaron pointed out Dean's words, saying West Virginia, to get Dean to sing it again. You don't even know it's one of my favorite songs of all time. It's really hard. I really want, there's a guy on YouTube, my favorite YouTuber. You want to know who my favorite YouTuber is? It's not me. I'm not that narcissistic, but I was narcissistic enough to make the joke. But it's not John Adams. It's a guy named Alex Melton who takes these just normal songs, sometimes newer songs, sometimes older songs, and does different versions of them. And he does a lot of turning things into a 2000s emo punk kind of sound, like Blink 182, kind of deal. And he's my favorite YouTuber. And I asked him if he would do a cover of West Virginia because I want it. I've never heard a punk version of West Virginia, and I want to hear it so bad. I think it would be awesome. And I'm not talented enough to do it myself. And I've seen some and they're awful. So I want him to do it because I think he could actually do it. But I love that song. I thank God that I'm not like that guy on the deep fryer. Yeah, put that up. Maybe that should be on the merch. Wendy says, I have to say that I grieve so much language I hear in general and the lack of striving for excellence. Words matter and they have specific definitions. Yeah, I agree. And again, we need to be very careful about who we're saying certain things around. As Christians, we don't get to just make up rules for ourselves and just live this life of total independence. It is a communal way of living as a Christian. So we have to be very careful about our circumstances, who we're around. I will say, guys, if you are here and haven't hit the like button, please do it. And maybe we'll get some more people to come and hang out with us. or at least later on it will get pushed out to more people because there are a few more likes on it. I appreciate it. That helps me. All 4 of our girls are still up and listening right now, Dean. I know that's on me. I ain't mad at you, bro. We are really kidding you. We don't shelter our kids from language in real life. Well, then. No, I'm just kidding. You guys, you never have to worry about spelling. Anyone who has sent me a message, even if it was just one message, you probably got back like a whole bunch of spelling errors because that's just what I do. Like, it's who I am. So never apologize for spelling unless I just can't make out what you're saying, and always know that I don't care. Like, if you have spelling errors, I am not one of those people. The rest of my wife's family, big time. And I just roll my eyes because who cares? Like, as long as I know what you're trying to say, that's all I care about. I just want to make sure I'm reading you right. Aaron says, all this talk of offense and alcohol is leading me to go pour some. See what you made me do. It's all your fault. In my mind, I went to that scene in Camp Nowhere. If you're a 90s kid, you know what I mean? Where it's like all the kids who want money, like, because they have this camp. I don't know why. I don't know why my mind is this way. But like, they go to this camp, like they trick all their parents into saying like they're going to a summer camp, and there's no summer camp. It's just a kid and his friends, and they get all the money from it, and they're just going to have a good summer on their own without any adults, or at least just a few. And at the end of one of the nights, they have like this huge bonfire, and then they like all like turn their flashlights to their face, and they're like, money, mud, and they're coming after this kid named Mud, and they want their money. And that's kind of what, like, when Aaron puts this is like, you made me do it. That's where, I don't know why I had to tell you all that, but that's what happened in my head. Slightly is like, I gotta say, Slightly, I like you a lot. You're growing on me quite a bit. At first, I wasn't sure. I wasn't like, some people, like I have people that come around and they're just troublemakers, and I wasn't sure if you were a troublemaker or not, but you've grown on me. I like you Slightly. I think you're a great part of this community. But Slightly, thanks for being a good sport and putting up with me. Yeah. Same for me, Slightly. Bill says, hey, Dean, on alcohol, as a recovered drunk, people walking around. All right, let me reread this. Hey, Dean, on alcohol, as a recovered drunk, people walking around on eggshells because of my issues is somewhat an issue. Just treat me normal. It's up to me not to be offended. I really appreciate that, Bill. Like, I think that's the right approach to have. And like, if it's that issue or another issue that we've had, like, it's the same kind of argument that a lot of fundies have used for modesty and talking about modesty. And they're just like, well, like, you need to be careful about my desires. It's like, okay, like, you don't need to be like flaunting everything, guys or girls, but like, got to live your life. So like, you can't just always be walking around on eggshells. So I appreciate that, man. I think that's the right approach people need to take. Slightly says, oh, I ain't putting up with you. I'm dying on the inside. Positively distraught, absolutely emotionally obliterated, mentally unhinged, psychologically damaged. Well, join the club. We're kind of all that way. Anyway. Pam says, question. Why do you think so many people, particularly men, are attracted to Mark Driscoll's cussing pastor persona? Are we lacking some realness in Christian circles? 100%. Like, yes, that is a marketing tactic, and it always has been for Mark Driscoll. There is something to, like, and it's the same thing. Hopefully on Monday we're going to talk about Eric Kahn. I'm still watching. There's a lot of videos to watch, and it's not fun, by the way. This is work. Like, some of these videos, sometimes talking about things is just like a hoot for me. Talking about these guys, it is homework, but I have gotten a lot of messages from people saying that they really appreciated the stuff on Brian Save. And so we're going to continue with the series, and we're going to take it one teacher at a time, as much as I would love to just bundle them all up. We're not going to do that because I think it's more helpful for people, not necessarily in our community here, but the people who do watch, and maybe they don't watch everything, but it's been helpful. So we're going to do that. But it's the same thing with like their Hard Men podcast. But it's a selling point because there is like they want to talk about, oh, this femininity in our church. And it's like, I don't think it's just femininity like that. Oh, it's not masculine, but it's also just like there is something to the effect of people just hide who they are at churches these days. And maybe that's always been a thing. I don't know because it's so experiential and people don't usually write about that kind of stuff. So like I can only deal with my own personal knowledge about that. So people just hide themselves and they aren't real. And then you hear these people who are, saying words that are, usually not said from people on stages. And they go like, oh, this guy's real. There's an authenticity that people think is there, but it's all an act. Like, again, I don't know how many times I got to say this. The guy talking about being a cowboy in the wilderness and driving a Bronco a decade ago was wearing puka shell necklaces and driving an Escalade in downtown Seattle. That guy ain't a cowboy, okay? Like, it's like some of these guys who just started watching like Yellowstone and they're just like, I'm a cowboy now. It's like, okay, like stop it. But yeah, I think that and specifically with men, I think women, like, I don't know if it's just something about being a woman that you're just more open to talk about, like your feelings is most often what's being talked about. But there is something to where it's more acceptable when you guys are all hanging out to just like talk about your struggles and stuff. And I don't think men do that as much. I don't know what that is. If we have just more guardrails, if we're more concerned about, backstabbing, if we're just not comfortable talking about our feelings or what, but there is something to that, I would say, at least in the context that I've been around where guys just aren't real with other guys. And so, yeah, I think that's something that they look at Mark Driscoll and they hear him, cussing or using language that, is really harsh. And they're just like, he must be just such a real, authentic, down-to-earth guy. And I think it's a total marketing thing. Brian says, how old are the swear words we have today? There must have been other swear words when the Bible was written. Thank you for getting me back on track, Brian. I appreciate you. All right, let's deal with one more Bible verse, and then we'll talk about what Brian's talking about. So one more. So this is the one that is a little bit harder to figure out. So this is Colossians chapter 3, starting at verse 5. Therefore, put to death what belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, God's wrath is coming upon the disobedient. And you once walked in these things when you were living in them, but now put away all the following: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and filthy language from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old self with its practices. So a lot of people would use this verse again to talk about cussing and that being wrong for Christians. And they go like, well, see, filthy language. Again, this is very similar to the foul language thing in the CSB, but a little bit different because filthy here is something that we don't see too often. But what it means is like a deadening, like not just like corrupting, but it's like something that's rotten. Like most often in the Bible, it's used to talk about like a tree not bearing fruit. Like that, like when it doesn't bear fruit, it just withers away and dies. Like that's what's being talked about here, this filthy language. So that kind of sounds a little bit more like cussing. But once again, the context, the context, slander and filthy language from your mouth, do not lie to one another. So for me, when I look at those things, I think that when we're talking about like that kind of deadening language or like that rotten language, it is in the context of lying, slandering, because it, like these words, they aren't like, you can't just cherry pick them from the order. It's filthy or slander, filthy language from your mouth, do not lie. So it's coming back to that idea. So I would imagine, again, I'm not a scholar, I do know the original languages. I have studied this passage out. I've looked at commentaries. But for me, I would say that it fits into that context. That, it's slander, lying, that kind of deadening language about somebody, or rotten language that you would use to show that someone is wrong when they're not wrong, or right when they're right and not right. So it's about that lying. Now, what Brian is talking about here, this like the words that the Bible uses. There are words that the Bible uses that at the time, I think it's clear that they were cuss words. I know people will get mad at me for saying it, and I know that people have differences of opinions on this. But when you look at words like, what is it, scubalon, that Paul uses to talk about stuff being dung, like that's a really harsh way to say it. Like there are other words that he could have used, but he used that word for a reason, to express like some harshness about the idea. Or when God says that all our deeds, all our good deeds are but filthy rags, like you probably know that. The language used for filthy rags is really gross. And in the context of that time, it's talking about like the menstrual cycle and things used to clean that up. And it's just like, whoa, like, maybe not like, just like, oh, you're thinking like, oh, this, when you're cleaning the windows and look after and you're like, oh, that window was actually really dirty. That's not this kind of dirty rag. Okay. So there are words in the Bible that you would look at in its context and say, even if they weren't cuss words, which I would imagine that it would fall into that category, like at least for that time. Again, not cursing. All right, the Bible isn't hypocritical against itself, but really harsh language that other people would look at and say it's an inappropriate word in some context. I think the Bible does use words like that in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. So now taking that and extrapolating, like Brian's saying, how old are the swear words we have today? There must have been swear words when the Bible was written. Yes, there are words. Then, you would look at it in other places and in other contexts and say like those words are definitely used to express what we would imagine as a cuss word in those contexts. And today we're using similar ideas to articulate similar things in that way. So again, I'm not saying that like Christians should cuss because the Bible does. That's not my argument. But I am saying if you want to be like, you should never use that kind of harsh language, then I think you have to go against the Bible. If that's the only reason why you're saying Christians shouldn't cuss, because the Bible does have at least two specific occurrences where it's very harsh language like that would be considered inappropriate in a lot of different contexts that the Bible uses to describe something when it's trying to say, not trying, when it is saying that something is like completely wrong. Like your good deeds. It's not just dirty, filthy, gross rags, and using it in a way that's a lot harsher than what we would probably say. Plug your movie channel. It's Movie Dean. And if you don't like movies, don't come over. Guys, don't do me the favor. If you do like movies and you like watching content about movies, then you can go over and watch that channel. But don't just do the pity stuff because it doesn't help as much as I would like it to. Slightly says, I'm being cussing a lot more in life since the Last Jedi came out. That is super funny. Let's see. Bill says, okay, why do we almost always learn the bad words first of a language we are attempting to learn? I don't know. I never did. I just I know, I've taken some Hebrew, but I would say that I know Greek a lot more. And then I did take Spanish in high school, but I don't remember anything about that. Biblioteca. That's what I know about that. And that's mostly from community. And then English. And so it's not the same. All right. Bill says, or Isabella says, Bill, because usually they're fun to say and most others don't understand. Yeah. There's something to that. Sarah says, Dean, how do you deal with movies and cussing, particularly if the name of God is used as a cuss word? I had a tough time with Monuments Men because of that. May have just walked out of the theater. Yeah, that is a difficult thing to deal with as a Christian. Like, okay, you think it's morally objectionable, so you don't do it in your personal life. All right, and like, I'm not saying like that's subjective. Like taking the Lord's name in vain is wrong. But so is murder, and a lot of us are okay with that because we're not going to go out and do that ourselves. I think that it is something that we have to, come up with our own reasons why and why not. I'm not going to force someone to do it, but I like to have the same position as me. But for me, I'm okay with seeing those things because I know it's depicting people who are sinners. And it's not that I can see everything or like see everything because I know it's a fictional tale about people who are sinners. Like there are things that are going to affect my mind and things that are going to affect my heart. And I need to be careful about those things. So for me is just who I am. And probably I would say the vast majority of people like lovemaking scenes, like you got to be really careful about those. But I would put it in those kind of categories of if it's going to cause you to do things or to say that word, or if like you go and you see this movie, like you come out of Monuments Men, you go to lunch or dinner or whatever, and like all of a sudden you drop that in a conversation. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I definitely can't see stuff that's going to make me do stuff like that. So I think that's a personal thing that we all need to come to a decision for ourselves about where that line is. But for me, I am okay with seeing that in a film or a TV show because it's depicting people who have a different belief system than myself. Now, if you're seeing that and like I would have a different standard if we're talking about something that's like supposedly a Christian thing and they just like keep on using God's name in vain. And like they're supposed to be Christians, or maybe this movie is supposed to be a Christian movie, and they're like they just continue to do it and they don't care. Like that's where I get into it. But we're going to have depictions of sinners being sinners, and I think that there is something to being able to observe that and not have it affect your heart and your mind to where you are going to want to do that or be interested in doing things that we see on screen. But yeah, that's what I would say. Maybe not the best answer. Maybe I need to think about that more to give a better answer. But let's see. Alex Melton is man. He really is. He really is. Who's going to spam what chat? I'll start spamming. Oh, like Alex Melton's chat. Don't do that. I'm not okay with how many things Dean and Aaron have in common. I have put a lot of energy into trying to convince Aaron that his taste is weird. He doesn't need a fellow nerd. Well, you got to hide your husband away from YouTube then, because there are a lot of people who have similar interests to me. The nerds have truly inherited the earth. Christ alone, you were a 90s kid? Sir, I thought you may have been a 90s adult. Okay. I don't know. Do I look that old? I don't know. Heidi says, oh, that's going to slightly head. He will be insufferable now. Well, that's going to slightly. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. Dean has no gray and no wrinkles. Does he look like a Botox guy to you? I do have gray. You see this right here? That one? I have a white hair there. And right there. I have two white hairs right now. And it's very, very scary. I'm honestly just messing with him. Okay. All right. Christ alone, have you been here before? I don't know. Dylan, these Christian dudes who criticize feminine men in the church have probably never been, have changed the brakes on their cars or done an oil change. Not that makes me a man. Oh man, Dylan's coming in here and saying, I know what a man is. And it's not that, it's me. You know why? Because I'm
Mr. Unlimited.
I love that sound effect. Tim says, authentic self-trigger alert for some. Also, cussing mostly bothers me when vocabulary is replaced with cuss words every other word. Yeah, and I talked about that earlier. I think there's something to it. If you are just like using those words so often, like it's just overly harsh. You just become an overly harsh person because cuss words are meant to articulate extreme emotions. So if you're constantly throwing those into a conversation about anything, like let's say it's about, I don't know, just the Hulk, and you're just like the effing Hulk, and like, you know, just like, and just using these words over and over and over again. Like it's like, I think you have a problem with your words. Like, I don't know if I would say that is sinful, but I just think that's a wisdom issue that you just don't know what words mean. And you're just like, it might be that you're using those words to elicit certain emotions from people. And then I would just say you're just being a super manipulative person. Like that could also be something. Wendy says, I am old school. I miss the creativity in speaking and writing and the precision used in expression. Indubitably, Wendy. Nice. We should do another Chill Stream movie crossover. We could do it right now. Heather doesn't get home for another 25 minutes, so I can hang out. Slightly says, Dean has gray hair. I might as well go ahead and bring out the life support. It's only a matter of time. Christ alone says, not for alive. No, sir. Well, I appreciate you being here. Aaron says, Pam, I'm in for that. Also, has Dean watched Jeremiah Johnson yet? No. I don't know. How long is that movie? I have not seen it. Heidi says, Dylan is trying to recover from Pam outing that he made dinner. Oh, snap. Guys, I make dinner all the time. It's not a big deal. And I'm a man. I'm a man, dang it. Do I have to put in sound effects to make myself feel better? Maybe. Yeah, so that's all I want to talk about as far as like the cussing stuff. Now we can do whatever you guys want to do. So now is the time. It's basically like that song, Jesus Take the Wheel, except for it's Underdogs take the show. It's up to you guys now, what you guys want to do for the next at least 25 minutes, maybe longer. I'm very glad my son, his numbers went back up and he's very consistent now. So that's good. It wasn't like life threatening or anything. It's just a little bit low. And I always like to see it like on the higher end of the spectrum they want us in for his numbers when I'm doing a stream and Heather isn't around because it's just, I don't want to have to really worry about that and watch it go and make sure it's like right within the range, like not just barely. I need it to like be healthily in there. Lois says, I agree with Dylan. As a woman, I was taught how to change my car brakes and oil. My wife can do that. Guys, I'm a city boy, and I don't know. My dad was too busy with a bunch of different jobs to teach me about those kind of things. So I don't know how to do any of those things, but you know who does? YouTube. I have fixed things on the car, but I haven't done it in a while because my father-in-law lives like a block and a half away, and he's like frickin' handy. Like he's so great, and he knows everything about cars. He's not a mechanic, but he can do everything. So, and he does it way better than me and faster than me, and I just like watch. So he helps us out quite a bit when it comes to like car stuff. But I fix things. I do things. I watch videos and tinker with things and get things done that I need to. But I'm definitely like, if you told me, all right, go out and, change the oil on your car, I would have to watch 3 YouTube videos before I would be able to do it. But I would be able to do it. But my wife might be able to do it better than me. It's true. She's way better with that kind of stuff. I'm more of a thinker. I'm a scholar. I'm not so much of a, physical labor. No, I'm just kidding. Aaron, you in for the Ahsoka series? Heck yeah, I am. I'm very excited for this series. I'm a little nervous because things have not gone well lately for Star Wars. Like Andor was really fun. Obi-Wan had its moments. Mandalorian season 3, not so great. Not so great. Really love season 2. Season 3, not so much, but it had some moments. Boba Fett sucked. So like right now, Disney and Star Wars needs a big win. And they're putting a lot on the line with putting Ahsoka into her own series. And so it better pay off. It really better. But I'm very excited for it. Also, Aaron, I'll just say, my buddy Jeremy Collins has a YouTube channel called Force Fandom. And, he just talks about Star Wars on that channel, not theology. So if you like Star Wars, you should go over there. But yeah, I'll probably be talking about it on my movie channel because it's fun. And I like doing it. Sarah says, new channel idea, the Cooking Dean. I have thought about it. All right. Like, guys, I've gone through like the whole gambit of like, what am I good at? What would be okay to make money at? Like, cause that's also something I've just come to the conclusion. Even though I know that when we do like fundraisers and stuff, you guys want to help me out. And I know that a lot of you guys, if I had a Patreon, like you guys would be in it, and it wouldn't even be like you have to get like a whole bunch of like personal streams and have a half-hour time with me. Not that I'm opposed to those things, but like I know that you guys wouldn't even care about that. You would just be supportive. But I do get so often the stuff of like, you're just in it for the clicks because of the content that I do, that I just like, it grosses me out and I don't want it. So like this channel is probably never going to be like that unless, I don't know, maybe in 6 months, my thoughts change completely. I'm not going to pigeonhole myself, but that's why I'm doing other stuff. Cause like I took an inventory of like, what am I good at? Cause I have learned I'm good at building community. I am good at that. Like we have a good community here. And I think a lot of that is the like C.S. Lewis thing of like, oh, you too, like that's how he's thought of as like friendship being built is people like coming around an idea and being like, oh, you too, you've been through that. And like, you find that commonality. And so you just become friends. And I think a lot of that is like the content of what we do, but I have learned like, I will take, I'll take the win on that one and say like, yeah, I'm good at building community. So I've taken an inventory of like, what are the things that I'm good at that I can actually build a following with and really try and not be accused of just like talking trash about teachers for money, or being the same thing that these teachers are like that I call out for building a platform. And so like I've done that. So I did think about doing a cooking channel. I'm not a great cook. I just really enjoy it when I have the time and the ingredients, because some of these ingredients are freaking expensive. It was $8, $8.50 a pound for chicken the other day. What the heck? Oh man, it's so bad. I love it. The Cooking Dean, just everything Dean. We're gonna start a channel for everything. We're gonna what else could there be? What else do I do? The Parenting Dean, Parent Dean, Cook Dean. I'm just gonna put everything in front of Dean. I'm gonna change this channel to Theology Dean. Or no, I don't even know if we do theology, to be honest. Sometimes, mostly it's just practical stuff, but I guess everything is theological. Slightly says, let's discuss the objective fact that Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams are the incarnation of pure evil. No, they're not. No, they are not. I disagree.
I steadfastly refuse.
I love both of them. J.J. Abrams will always be one of my favorite celebrities, directors, certainly. Like, I love Super 8. That movie is so stinking great. I just love it so much. It speaks to my heart. And those are some bigger steps. Just a sec. I forgot that the oldest was still awake. Like, his bedtime is now. And so he's just coming downstairs to put things away. Like, he has the switch. And it's like, I was like, those are really heavy steps. It's like, oh yeah, that kid's big now. where was I? Oh yeah, I love J.J. Abrams, and he's awesome. And Ryan Johnson is great when he's doing Knives Out stuff. I don't like his Star Wars. I don't like his take. Some cool moments in The Last Jedi, but man, he did not do justice to Luke Skywalker. But they are not pure evil. They just messed up real bad. First episode, Burgers, could do it. I love it. Like, guys, it would not be nearly as good. Do you realize how big of a marketplace like cooking is on YouTube? I would have to have a different spin. Iron Chef Christendom. There we go. There's that spin. That'd be great. And Dylan is applauding Lois. Heidi says, I can jump my car and check the oil. Aaron fixes everything else while I bake muffins. Some would say that's a harder thing. Baking is very difficult. I don't mess around with baking. Like, I'll cook, and I love cooking. Specifically, I love cooking Italian food, but I don't mess around with baking. That's Heather's department. It's too much math for me. Especially now. Now we got to calculate all the sugars and all this different stuff. It's very difficult. Like a patriarch. Wendy says, I used to build greenhouses back in the day. Really? That's cool. RJ's here. Hey, how's it going? Yeah. Aaron says, Abraham pitched his tents and changed his own brake pads. So wise. Cody says, oh, hey, I made it to live for once. We done talking about cussing? Yeah. and Cody's like, you know. RJ says, we had dinner plans with friends, but glad to catch you all. Hey, you know what? You guys have lives, like, it's just, I only schedule these things out, like, not so that you could build your whole like weekend schedule around mine, just to let people know. Like, if you're bored, you can come hang out, but you don't have to. Slightly says the Boba Fett show is even worse when you learn that in the old continuity, Boba literally becomes the next Mandalore and united the clans. I mean, sure, but like, I don't like the old lore. Like, I don't like any of that stuff. Like, there's some interesting aspects, but I want things directly said to be, this is how it is. And that never was said from Star Wars in Disney, or Lucasfilm back, before Disney got it. I like being told this is the continuity and this is what matters and this is what actually happened. Boba Fett did suck. And I actually like the idea of Boba Fett taking over for Jabba the Hutt. Like, that seems pretty cool to me. But the way it happened and how small of a world and how clean those freaking Vespas were, you can never tell me that's okay. The weird gadget teenagers who are his like posse riding around on their like pristine Vespas on Tatooine on this like weather beaten planet. Just so weird. What an odd choice. And yeah, but it did give us some great Luke Skywalker stuff, and I'll always be thankful for that. So that's the only thing I'll probably ever go back and watch that season for. But that part was really cool. Knowing someone who can fix things is the best, for sure. Oh man, if it wasn't for my father-in-law, man, we would have spent so much money. He's helped us so much. He's a great guy. I don't know. Ike Day. Ike Day. What the? Might cuss on this channel just because I'm so like taken back at what my words are trying to blur into. I promise it's only water. Okay, you can see it's only water. I promise it's not anything else. It's clear. Slightly, I'm on a muffin kick right now. Banana, chocolate chip, blueberry, zucchini. Lots of zucchini muffins.
Dishonor on your whole family. Make a note of this. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow.
I don't want it. Everything else sounded so good, and then zucchini muffins. It's a thing. It's a sign of the curse. Cool, the theonomist movement. Chocolate zucchini cake is the best. Heidi sounds wonderful. Is this a thing? What is this? There's zucchini in this stuff. I've done zucchini noodles for pasta, like trying to like go a little bit, healthier at certain points, like zucchini cake. No. Oh, grill the theonomist view. I don't know. I got like tons of videos. So probably not. Like if you haven't thought that anything I did has grilled it by now, nothing I say in the stream will be that. Wendy says nobody could replace my beloved coffee time with John and Mama in terms of cooking. Oh yeah. Well, for me, it's George Motes, the burger guy. I think he's one of my heroes. And if you notice things, like it's like Jack Black, J.J. Abrams, George Motes. There's a similar hairstyle, Maybe it's just that. And Jane Solo, Han and Leia's daughter, trained by Luke into a Jedi, went to Boba for Mandalorian aid since he was the ruling monarch of all the clans. I mean, that's kind of cool. But I don't know. Maybe something will happen. I like, what's her face? Bo-Katan being on the throne of Mandalore. I like that. I like her as a character. And I'm fine with Boba just being, I don't like how noble they made him. Like that. He's like, ooh, look, he's like this. He's not just like a, warlord. He's something else. And it's like, I don't care. I like Boba Fett being like, we're going to run some spice. he's a villain. He's a villain. It's okay for him to be a villain. Sarah says a professor friend of mine has a channel, and if you join his Patreon, you can join his Discord channel. It's pretty great. Yeah, I think I've gotten away from that idea. For a while, I thought about that of, just having this, like, I talked about it, like, oh, we could do a Discord. And then I am an introvert. And it's not so much of like giving out my information and being accessible. It's just, I know I would have to like read all the stuff just to be able to monitor it. And I know probably like, I don't know, we could have people like different people monitor it too, but it's just a lot of interactions. Like you'll see it every once in a while. Like I like Twitter a lot because I could just kind of like throw things into the void and see what sticks. But you'll notice, and even on some of my videos, like I haven't commented on very, very much of anything on that huge stream, like the biggest stream that I've had on this channel of the Shiny Happy People thing. It was just too much, and just like too much interaction. My introvert heart was like, no, we're running away. So I don't know. Like I probably won't do that of having another place where I have to like read all the stuff and go through it and all of that, because it's a lot. I know it doesn't seem like a lot probably for most people. Like I probably get like maybe, I don't know, like it's probably just like something like 10 people messaging me a week on different topics, asking me questions and stuff like that. And that's enough for me. like by the way, like don't ever feel like, oh, you're doing too much, like to for Dean to be interacting. Like I want to interact. It's just, I might take a little while depending. It's just, sometimes I get like so much like interaction that's just too much for me. So I kind of back off. And I like, if it was a Discord, it would be just constant. So, I don't think I will, but I don't know, maybe in the future, but it would have to be something to where I didn't have to read every single thing and, all that kind of stuff. Cause we get a lot of interaction on the channel and I love it, but also, like it just could be a lot. So I don't know, maybe at some point it's a cool idea. Like I would like if there was a way to like just build it and you guys can have it and I can interact a little bit, like that would be cool. But I would have to like have people who are really dedicated to filtering stuff and know also like my mind so well to be able to do that, and like then do it the way that, like, not that it has to be like 100% the way I say, but also like anything that has my name on it is attached to me, right? Like, so it's like I need to be careful. Like there are things that I turn down. Like most of the interactions I get are, will you come on this podcast? Will you have this person on your podcast? Like you would be surprised how often I get, interview this person. And it's just like, I don't do interviews. And that's why I say that now. Like it's just become a rule. And it's like, and again, it's just me being an introvert, and a little bit of like, I don't like being told what to do on my channel. And I feel like if I opened it up and had just like interviews all the time, that I would get a lot of people being like, you should have it. And it's like, some people are way more forceful than others. So yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Like I love what we're doing here on the channel and I love you guys, but it's also just, I can only handle so much interaction online. Like I do have a real life too, like all you guys do. But you guys aren't responsible for interacting with everyone. Like that's the difference. So it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's not like a burden, but just as like an introvert, there's only so much I can do. And I've learned to just like be okay with that. And I hope you guys are too, but your chicken is expensive, but the healthcare is free. That is true. Guys, thank God for that. All right. Like for real. Cause we're going to Saskatoon on Tuesday for some like health appointments for I'll just say people's names. It doesn't matter anymore. I had a paper that I showed you guys. Henry is our diabetic son. And so we got to go to Saskatoon for another appointment. And like all the medicine, all that stuff, guys, it would be so expensive if we were down in the States. I just think about that so often. Thank God that we're up here. And I know some of you guys argue about, how it's more expensive when you think about it this way and all that. I don't know about any of that kind of stuff. All I know is that when I go to Walmart and I get the needles for my kid's pen for his insulin, it cost me $5. So like, that's pretty awesome. And that's for like a month. There's a lot of other things too, but Shania says, hey Dean, sorry about linking a website in a comment. I forgot it was against the rules. Mea culpa. No worries. I don't even remember. Guys, I have a filter. If you leave a comment in the like comment section with a link to it, it's automatically going to go into this delete pile and it's just going to go away. So like I usually don't even see who did it. Another thing, I'm not going to, check every website link and make sure every website link is okay on the channel, because I know the channel is only 4,000 people. So don't like hear me and say like, I think I'm like way bigger than I am, but we do get like dozens of comments every day on all videos. And it's just like, there's a lot of links attached to those things. And so I just have it as a rule. Change your channel name to Underdean. It's just underwear, bro. Like that's what that is. That's a trap. Aaron, adding Dean to everything starts to sound like Community did it first. Kind of. I haven't thought about that, but that's true. Filoni is bad without George. With him, I'm sorry. I don't know. I liked Rebels. I liked Rebels quite a bit. There's a lot in Rebels that I really love, so I'm really looking forward to Ahsoka. Wendy, Aunt Wendy needs to be banned. I mentioned another FB page I follow. Bye-bye. I don't know. Who did you say? Oh, that coffee time thing. I don't know. You can say what you want. Just don't put the link in. Dean, you're a man. You can change if you have to, I guess. I get you. No, we aren't. We aren't us without Wendy. You are the Snickers bar of this chat. Like, do people get hangry without Wendy being around? RJ says that is painful. Chicken, I remember being under $1. That's nuts. Oh my goodness. I remember there were just like chickens everywhere, and you could just go out in the field and just get one. If you chased it, chase it down, you could just have it. Remember those days? That's not anyone's days. It's just stealing chickens. I don't know. I think that's so funny. Let's see. Yep, RJ, 99 cents a pound for legs and thighs. I remember that too. Yeah, it's not that way anymore. Strong disagree on Star Wars lore, and it was set in stone with regards to what was canon just as much as today. The problem with that, Lucas and Filoni ignored the canon while making Clone Wars. I don't know. You're really aggressive right now, slightly. I don't like cool. I don't know. Like, I know that there's lots of people who get like really passionate about that stuff. For me, I just didn't invest that much time in reading. You know what books I did read? All of were the Padawan series. When the new stuff started to come out and they had those books, like those books that were aimed at teens, because I was just like getting up to that reading level, and it was like a master and a Padawan going and having adventures. I read all of those from the library, but didn't read a whole lot of the other stuff. Mostly just Wikipedia'd it. LL Dean, I'm a mail you zucchini muffins now. If only I knew your address. Well, apparently you know everyone who knows me. Maybe you can get it. Pam says, did anyone see the pastor who smashed the dollhouse with a baseball bat covered in Bibles? Big yikes.
Big yikes.
That's nuts. And that guy's nuts. Like, there has to be something. I know some people are like, yo, you can't say that. You can't say that about pastors. There has to be something to where we can all agree that a guy getting up and strapping Bibles around a bat and then smashing a dollhouse on a stage is probably like, there's some mental health issues probably going on. If not that, then there's a whole bunch of other problems. Like, that's just weird and dumb. And also, like, I joked on Twitter, and Pam, you probably saw this, but I just think about the intern, because that whatever, Greg Locke didn't go out and get that dollhouse, unless it's his kids. I didn't think about that until just now. Maybe it's his kids and he just got up in front of everyone and beat it to smithereens. But most likely it was an intern who went and got that, bought it, put it together, put it on the stage, and got it all, like put the little chairs in the right spots, only to have it smashed. And I just wish like we could do like an office kind of zoom on his face as he watched it getting smashed. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with a pastor strapping a bunch of Bibles to a bat and beating something into smithereens. No. Have you heard smithereens used so often? Probably not in a while. Man, slightly. I mean, good for you. I like that you're passionate. To clarify, Boba Fett being a crime boss is a very cool idea, but they Disney-fied his character too much. Made him too much of a nice guy. Just imagine. Both him and Cad Bane, I like Cad Bane, both became rival crime bosses in the show as their gangster rivalry. So much cooler. Bring in Ara Singh, Bosk, Dengar, etc. Dengar was one of the coolest action figures when I was a kid. I don't know why. Actually, like looking back, he looked really dumb, like with all like the bandages all over. But I just thought he was like the coolest character. It was him and Lando. Lando just like, I thought he looked like a spy. So I did like James Bond kind of adventures with him. That's what I remember. Aura Singh, isn't that the bounty hunter that's on the top of the canyon in Phantom Menace who is shooting at people? Or no, those are sand people. She's there, right? Like there's something about that. I don't know. I like it. I like Star Wars a lot, but I think Slightly likes it slightly more than me. Heidi, Pam, growing up, I wasn't allowed to play with Barbies. I thought that controversy had passed over, but the Barbie movie brought it back, it seems. Oh boy. Dean, did you check out that Young Jedi cartoon on Disney? There was a lesbian couple in it. It's geared towards Disney Junior age. Oh man. I watched a couple of those with my kids. They didn't like it. So I'm kind of glad that they didn't like it. I don't know what like the rest of that, like, again, we live in Canada, so things are a little different. Like I'm okay. Like Elemental has like a same-sex couple in it, but it's just them sitting in a room and there's like nothing more to that in their background characters. So I'm okay with my kids seeing stuff like that. that is just like there, and they don't care. They don't know that, like, it's not going to like be something that they're really like questioning about. But if they're doing things like, that's different. Oh man, I didn't know. Like, we did watch a couple episodes. Slightly says the messed up thing about young Jedi. Just like you're just in your own conversation. Slightly, I love you, man. Just a lot of Star Wars stuff. That's cool. Wendy says, I think you ought to do a 10 episode series and expand why I don't watch The Chosen. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I will say, never gonna do it. Never, ever, ever, ever gonna do it. I don't want to. I never will. You will never see it on this channel. I've said what I needed to say. And I'm not gonna say anymore because the Chosen fans suck. I'll say it. I'll say all those fans. They're awful. All right. Like, some of the stuff that I get sent. Like, I know I show you some of the funny stuff, but man, like, they're so freaking mean. I like, no. Also, I might be one of the dumbest guys in the world, but like, I did not know Dallas Jenkins was Jerry Jenkins' kid. Did you guys know that? Like, the guy behind The Chosen is Jerry Jenkins' kid, like one of the writers for the Left Behind series. And once I found that out this week, I was like, oh, like, okay, so you actually had money. You had a lot of money before, like, this isn't just like you coming up with investors. This is, Daddy, can I make a TV show? If any of the Chosen fans hear that, they'll be like, you're the worst. They already say I'm the worst, so I'm the double worst. All right. When I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to play with Transformers because they were too violent, but I was allowed to watch The Terminator and Die Hard. I mean, that's like, every parent is a little inconsistent on things, but like, that seems a little much. No, you can't watch those robot cartoons. Here, watch Bruce Willis go through like 10 different guys and like the Christmas party with the drugs. Just watch that, kid. Heidi, interviews take a certain tone too. It doesn't fit it doesn't fit you or this channel, in my opinion. I feel like I'm on the channel every time you read my comments, though. I mean, yeah, like, there is something to that. I don't know. I've had people like I really like the episodes that I've done with people on the show. Like, I've only had people on this channel like maybe like 5 times. Like, I had Joe Thorne on, and I would have Joe back on the show because Joe and I are pretty similar on most things, and he's just a cool guy. But he's taking like the summer off of like online stuff. But Joe, I had Wyatt, who is Buddy from TGC Canada. He's the executive director. We had him on an episode to talk about Canada. I had Tim Frisch on the show, who's probably the nicest guy on the internet. He does Bible reviews. That, I don't know. Like, it wasn't like on Underdog Theology. It was just a stream. And that was fun. But I don't know. Like, probably wouldn't do that kind of content again because it did bring in a lot of people that are just like in that world where they're talking about like translations and stuff. That's not me. And that's also the problem. I think that's what you're meaning, is like, this is a very particular thing that we're doing. And so when you do like, you bring in some of these people, it brings their audience, and a lot of times those audiences don't match. So I think I'd be a lot more careful about who I'd bring on if I were to do more interviews in the future. And maybe I will. But again, I just get so many of like, hey, I would love to come on your show and talk about this, or you should have this person on the show. And I get it a lot from like things related to abuse and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. Because it's also like, you got to be so careful about how you talk about these things. And I think that like some people are wanting to like wreck shop over everything. So they're just going to be super harsh. And some people just are going to be super soft on things. And so like, I just go like, I don't know if I want to support you. I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard running a channel. I'm such a, I just suffer for Jesus though. It's just like, just feel bad for me, and I guess I'm the center of attention right now. I'm just kidding. Guys, what would happen if Dee did an interview with me? How do y'all think it would go? How bad would it be? Would y'all watch it? I'd watch it. Like, I would pay for that. Slightly, I'll pay you to come. No. That could be fun. Well, for $40 on my Patreon, if you sign up for $40 for a year, then you can come on my show. I don't know. But that would be funny. Is there a Barbie's Anonymous someplace? I don't know. Maybe where you guys just talk about your past with Barbies. Dylan, you could do a cookie stream. Peak Friends with Dean. Yeah, maybe. Luke says, this makes me want to cuss. Maybe a lot of things do, Luke. Do you have a problem with this, Luke? Everyone take a screenshot and send it to Luke Daly's church. No. I've done that a couple of times when Luke comes in and says anything. It's going to be my new thing. Is like, everybody take a screenshot. The Bane trilogy and Darth Plagueis were fantastic. From what I Wikipedia, yeah. Let's see. I will say I really like Chuck Scholl's Chuck Soul, who did Darth Vader when like they just started doing like the Marvel comics with Star Wars. I really, really, really like that. I was right. That's Aura Singh. Cool. I appreciate it. I know some things. Some things I kind of vaguely remember. I used to be like movie trivia. I really liked movie trivia, and like there was a world out there that was all about movie trivia, and I was like kind of in that world, and so I used to know things. Now I just go like, is that person from that thing? Pam says, yes, what a fabulous, fantastic idea. A Chosen series with Dean. I would probably do that if I was getting paid a lot of money and I could just sit back on my couch and make fun of it the whole time. Like, I don't know. I'm such a mean person. I probably shouldn't be that way about something about the Bible. But Heidi says, Dean live reacts to The Chosen. I would watch that even though I have chosen not to watch The Chosen up to now. Yeah, I believe it's my choice. It's a lot of choices there in Chosens. Wendy, Daddy, can I make a movie? You are a riot. I'm stealing that line. I'm just saying, I didn't know it was Jerry Jenkins' kid. And it's just like, okay, now I see how this works. Everyone like they're like, oh, it's I just came up with this idea and I kind of like made this myself. And then you just find out, oh, that guy. Yeah. It's like, what was it with Trump? Like he got $1 million loan from his dad and started his own business. It's kind of like that same kind of thing. Heidi says, Dean, I feel like you are talking about a live conversation, though, not an interview. Maybe I'm being too picky about words. Here's the thing. If I do an interview, it's going to be live. Like everything that I do here on this channel is pretty much, if I don't do it live, it's minimal editing. Because the only reason why I'm able to put out the content that I do is because I do it live. It's just so fast. So like even if I do have pre-recorded stuff, the pre-recorded stuff that I've done, I use the same exact software that I do for live streaming. It's just not being streamed. And then I like don't do basically any editing and I just put it out. And if it requires a lot more editing, then I'm probably not going to do it on this channel. Because I just don't have the time for it. And also I will say, interviewing in the Christian world is weird because you'd think like, oh, well, maybe you could even like, like that person has an audience and so they'll come and watch whatever. That has not been my experience. Like when I have people on my channel, some people do come from their audience, but they don't stick around for very long. So I don't know. Dean, kids take up a lot of space in your head that you used to have for useless facts. We feel you. Yeah, I used to know stuff. Luke says, The Chosen is so good. Predestined. Pam says, I watched the conversation where you and Heather talk about your fundy days and how you changed. You guys did a great job. I appreciate it. Yeah, there have been a few people who've watched that over the last couple days. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to watch it, it was like episode 10 of Theo Live back in the day. We talked about fundamentalism and where we came from and some of our differences. It went off the rails. I remember that. Like, again, I'm very, like, I know it doesn't seem like I'm put together. But I promise you, like, I have notes when I do like underdog theology or general ideas, bullet points, what I want to hit, where I want to hit. And it's very different when you're doing an interview or having someone on the channel. So I do remember being like, we did not talk about nearly as much stuff as I wanted to, but I've done that over, like, it's 93 episodes in on Monday. So we talked about everything that I wanted to, just didn't do it all in that episode. Sarah, speaking of Star Wars and biblical things, anyone ever listened to audio Bibles? James Earl Jones did a whole Bible reading. I saw it at the library. It's great. It's great, by the way. Pam, that is currently my favorite episode so far. Yeah, it's all Heather. Everybody likes Heather. Heidi, also, it makes me sad that Heather doesn't show up more. I enjoyed getting to hear her perspective and watch Dean and Heather as a couple. I would love to do a podcast with just me and Heather and do it like on a weekly basis. That would be my dream scenario. But here's the thing. Heather doesn't like coming and being on screen very much. So that is not something that she has sought out. When she has been on the channel is only because she's being very kind to me and has done it as a favor. But she does not enjoy it. She likes when she knows like what topics we're talking about, and like that will be like, she will more likely be on something like that rather than just like a chill stream like this. But yeah, it's just not her favorite. And so, I probably could put my patriarch foot down and be like, you are coming on this channel. But I don't know. I'll save that move for a rainy day, when I really need it. No. Shania says, big yikes, revelation. I did not know about the
Big
chosen.
yikes.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Heidi, question, Dean, can you talk about your plan for the Olive Dean After Dark? Oh, thank you. I was meaning to talk about that way earlier. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, so a couple of little changes to the channel. Yeah, so my plan is to, obviously, Underdog Theology doesn't change. It's the Monday show. It's going to be around noon every Monday forever until the end of time. No, I don't know. Maybe someday it will change, but not anytime soon. So Mondays staying there. I do want to keep on doing these Friday streams where we kind of have a topic and then we kind of just move into Q&As. And that's way more fun than I think just doing Q&As. Because it, I don't know. When it's weekly and it's Q&A, I don't feel like anyone comes up with anything new, because you guys, like, you want to hang out and you want to be in a chat and you want to like have interaction, but you've already asked that question. And you're like, why do I have to come up with the content for your show, Dean? You come up with your own. So for like the weekly stuff, I think having like, something that we could talk about, just like, and it doesn't have to be like the deepest content ever. Just, talk about cussing and Christianity and stuff like that. We could do that. So that's what Friday is going to be. So Friday is going to be Underdogs Theology, or Underdogs Unite. That being said, sometimes it's going to be Saturday, as you guys found out. So it's just scheduling and when I can do things. But then every once in a while, I'll put it that way. So maybe bi-weekly, and maybe not even that much. Like once or twice a month, we're going to do the Olive. So for a while, I was doing like these Dean After Dark. And it was basically just where I could drink alcohol and you could know that Dean was going to be drinking alcohol, because there are some people who are offended by alcohol and want to make it clear that stream isn't for you. And I don't want it to take away from other streams that, you could be hanging out at. So it's basically just a way of being like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be really chilling and, might be drinking something. And so it's just kind of a warning. So, yeah, so it's just replacing that and doing that more often. I was doing it pretty often and then I just stopped. So, but that's just going to be a really, really chill stream. Like that's not going to have a topic. That's just going to be basically just a Q&A and one where I'll be drinking something and hanging out. So that's going to be a little bit more rare than all the other streams, but it's going to be something that I want to do just to hang out. And again, like just to use that name, like I think it was Caleb. I'm gonna give him the credit. He was saying like, "Hey, you should do that instead of Dean After Dark," and I was like, "That's a brilliant idea." So I'm just rolling with that idea, bringing back the olive name. I thought about bringing back the logo too for that and just leaving it, but I do like the idea of a martini glass there. I think it's kind of funny. Yeah, I understand though, because it would be hard to juggle jobs and kids, etc. Fun to see Heather for sure. Yeah. I would love for her to be on more. But again, I'm not going to force her to. She likes that I do this. It's like, but we have talked about, being not better or anything. Like I use my time pretty well. Like again, when I am working on YouTube, it's most likely because I'm actually streaming. like a lot of the things I do on this channel and my movie things are not things that require a lot of editing, and that's what takes up the most time for me. So YouTube is, working on comments, sending people messages, thumbnails, but then streaming. And so, or, like a lot of the stuff that I do outside of that, of like research of watching videos and stuff, that's stuff I'm going to do anyways. But we have been talking about making sure that I'm using my time well when it comes to YouTube and, not doing it too often when she's home. So there have been a couple times where I've done like some streams in the evening and it's taken away from our time in the evening. And so that's why I do like the Underdog Theologies in the afternoon. It's like, because, Heather's usually working at that time. I'm here. So might as well, do it then instead of taking another evening away from, us being able to hang out. So yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure like that, like I do stay up a lot later than she does. So that's what my idea with the olive is, that it could be later. Like it could be like starting a stream right around now. And so I know that might not be the best time for some of you, but maybe some of you, it would give you more opportunity than, showing up for Monday at noon, so like there's give and take with that, but just giving people opportunities and making sure that I'm not, taking away from time with my wife and with my kids and all that stuff. But you guys get it. Everyone in our small group is gaga over The Chosen. I politely nod with their exuberance. I don't know if I could do that. Like I just think, honestly, I think the whole thing is dumb. I don't like saying it. I was willing to like, think about it, but it's just, to me, it's just like, I don't know. I've seen some behind the scenes stuff and I just don't care. I just don't care to watch it. Yeah. Dean, do you think The Chosen is a second commandment violation? Yeah, I know answering that will get you in trouble. I see you knew most watch short. Yeah. It's no, I don't think that it is. Unless you are like, when you see Jesus in your mind, if it's that guy, then it might be for you, but I don't think it's inherently something like that. I think that we can have depictions of Jesus without it crossing into worshiping a graven image. But I think that it could easily become that for some people. But I mean, there's so much art in churches that you would have to get rid of too if you were to go that hard-nosed about it. But yeah. Pamela says we have actually watched the first season or two and enjoyed it, especially Matthew's character, but we had to be convinced by our daughter and we watched it with her. Yeah, I mean, if you like it, then watch it, And if it's not, like I said, if that's what you're thinking for Jesus, like if you're singing a worship song and the actor's face comes to your memory, like I think that you probably shouldn't be watching it. I think that would be like a graven image. Mark Murphy, welcome from smoky Eastern Washington. Hey, hey, hey. Represent. I'm from the West Side, though. Let's see. We are safe here, just dealing with unhealthy air. It's fire season for us. Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of smoke over here in Saskatchewan, too. Not as much as you guys, but a lot. Blows my mind you are having a fire season. Do you have to stay at home order? Well, I mean, like, sure, there are fire seasons, but there's also tornado seasons in some places and stuff you don't have to deal with on the West Coast. Mark says, not in Spokane, but we do have evacuation orders in surrounding communities. Oh, my goodness. That's scary. Hopefully you guys can all stay tight and the fires can be put out. All right. I'm feeling it, RJ. Night, guys. It's bedtime in Texas. I don't know if I would make a late night, but work replay the next few days. Yeah. And again, guys, with any of these streams, like if people are there to hang out and want to, then cool. And if people aren't able to because of the time, I get that. Like, again, I never expect anyone specifically to be at any of my streams or to have so much interaction, or if someone's not there for a stream, like you don't have to apologize the next stream. Sorry, I missed it. Or in the comments be like, sorry, I missed this. Like, that's not your fault. That's me being able to stream when I can and having to work around, like all this different scheduling stuff and try to get stuff out there. So if you watch the replay, cool. But you don't have to be like, sorry, I didn't make it, or just finally catching a live, so sorry I haven't been able to make some. It's like, you have a life. Like, you do you. Cal, I'll take this as the last one and then I'll probably call it quits. Cal says, favorite bands from Pacific Northwest. Oh, man. Well, there was a lot of people like Cal, if you're from the Pacific Northwest, do you know of like the coffee shop that used to be around in Snohomish called Wired and Unplugged? I used to go there every Friday night, and there were a lot of local musicians that I really liked that went through there. So probably say a lot of those guys. But bands, probably say Band of Horses would probably be my favorite Seattle band. They did play it like Wired and Unplugged, but they were a little bit bigger. The Senate, they did a lot of like stand-up bass stuff, and it was like really cool sounding. Yeah. Who else is from there? I mean, Nirvana. Musicians would be Jimi Hendrix. I don't necessarily like all of his songs, but he's really good. But yeah, some of those. Mark Murphy, fave bands. Well, from the past, there was a great Christian alternative rock band named Grammar Train. That reminds me, 90 Pound Wuss. Although I think that they're actually from out. They're out from Muirwoods, right? Like over from like Spokane area, but they played a lot in on the coast there. But yeah, some of those bands, but probably Band of Horses. I love Band of Horses, and they're one of my favorite bands of all time. So that would probably be up there. All right, I am fading, and my wife has gotten home, so I'm going to call it quits. I appreciate you guys all hanging out with me, and if anyone's still watching, hit the like button, and enjoy the replay. If some of you guys are coming in a little bit later, go back to the beginning and hang out and watch it and leave comments. And I really try to interact with at least these stream comments. I don't interact with all the comments on the channel, but I try to interact with people who come to like these like kind of more chill streams and make sure that I comment back on stuff. So Do that, and I will see you on Monday for Underdog Theology. Have a good one.